In this video, we will show you how to replace the front tie rods in a Toyota RAV4. First step is to remove the front tire. Once that tire is removed, we're going to loosen the tie rod, the inner from the outer. You can see him loosening that with a 22mm wrench. Second piece is to remove the clamps around that inner tie rod. The first one is called a CT clamp. The second one is pinched on permanently and needs to be knocked off with a chisel or pliers. Next, we're going to unscrew the inner rod from the outer rod. You can do that with the pliers. You can also put an open end wrench around that. Next, we're going to remove the tie rod nut, but make note of the exact location of that because we're going to install the new tie rod in roughly the same location. Once removed, we're going to take off the boot. Now Brian is using a large pick here, but you could use a screwdriver or even cut the boot off if you're replacing it. If the boot is in good condition, you can reuse it. Now we're going to use the one specialized tool here, which is an inner tie rod removal tool. You can purchase this online for $40 to $50. Most auto parts stores actually rent these for free of charge. And so this is not a tool you're going to use often. So this might be a good one to take a loaner from your local parts store. Next, we're going to take the new inner tie rod and we're going to screw it on. Make note that we did put some medium strength Loctite on the threads, and that's the blue Loctite. Once on, we're going to tighten that to 65 foot-pounds. With our new tie rod installed, we're going to put that boot back on. There's the boot. You can use zip clamps. You can use a band clamp on that. The front one is easy though because that is a constant tension clamp. Now we're going to reinstall the outer tie rod, but before we do, we're putting in a small amount of copper anti-seize. These do have a tendency to corrode together, and some anti-seize lubricant can work wonders. We reinstall the lock nut, and now we can start the reassembly into the outer tie rod.
So I tried to match up my jam nut because this is what gauges depth on how far it spins in, right? And so this is your adjustment, however far in or out the jam nut is, and then you tighten up the tie rod to the jam nut and then snug the jam nut down. So depending on how tight you want it or where you want the alignment, technically, that's how far you go. That's how far you tighten this.
Once we have that in the right location, we're going to torque that nut down to 36 foot-pounds. And now we can start the reassembly process. The left side and the right side are exactly the same. If you've replaced one, I would encourage you to replace the other so that you do not have to touch it in the near future. Once done, also get the car professionally aligned. Once you've made these macro adjustments, it's time for an alignment. Good job to Brian and Tom.